High above Metropolis, the sky was burning gold. The sunset draped the clouds in fire, and the city below shimmered like a jewel. Wind howled at the edges of the skyline, pushing against the tallest buildings. But nothing could touch the two figures floating in the air, perfectly still in the chaos. Superman hovered like a statue of light, his cape rippling in slow motion. Beside him, Supergirl rose into view, her silhouette sharp against the sun. Her hair danced wildly in the wind. Her blue suit was streaked with ash from the battle they'd just won. A smile played on her lips, tired, but full of fire. "You okay?" she asked, brushing soot from her cheek. "I should be asking you that," he said, voice warm but frayed. His eyes lingered on her longer than they should have. Below them, the remains of the destroyed alien ship sank into the harbor. Sirens wailed in the distance. The world had nearly ended, again. But in this moment, suspended between sea and sky, there was peace, silence. Kara let out a breath. "I thought we were done for." "You were incredible," Clark said, softer now. "I mean it. You saved half the city by yourself. I don't think I've ever seen anyone fight like that." Kara glanced sideways at him. Her smile faded into something quieter. "You don't have to say that just because we share a name." "I'm not," he said. "If I could fly away from everything, just leave this world behind, I'd want it to be with you." The words left his mouth before he could stop them. Time froze. Kara blinked. The wind seemed to hush. Her eyes, so often filled with strength, suddenly shimmered with something far more fragile. "Wait," she said, voice barely above the breeze. "Do you mean that?" Clark hesitated, caught in the moment like a man standing on the edge of a cliff. He tried to speak, to explain what he meant, to pull the words back. But then she looked at him, truly looked, and smiled in a way that turned the sky brighter. "Yes," she whispered. "Then I say yes." Clark's heart stopped. The world, already quiet, seemed to hold its breath. She reached out and took his hand, fingers trembling slightly as they laced with his. A soft golden light broke through the clouds above them, casting a warm halo around their joined silhouettes. And still, he didn't speak. He didn't tell her he hadn't meant it that way. He didn't explain that it was just a passing thought, spoken out of exhaustion, awe, maybe even loneliness. Because in that moment, seeing her eyes lit up like dawn, hearing her heartbeat match his in the air between them, he couldn't bear to take it back. Far below, news choppers captured the image. Superman and Supergirl, hand in hand, floating against the burning sky like the last hope of a dying world. And in every home, in every heart that saw it, the question rose like a spark. Had Superman just proposed? If only he had said the truth. If only he'd stopped the sky from opening. But the moment passed, and the world believed. And so did she. The world spun wildly as the news spread. What was supposed to be another victory for Earth quickly became the headline of every news outlet across the globe. The image of Superman and Supergirl, hand in hand, floating above Metropolis, had gone viral before they even landed. Clark Kent, now back in his civilian form, sat in the quiet of his office, staring at the glowing screen of his computer. His fingers hovered over the keyboard, but the words wouldn't come. Every headline screamed the same thing. Superman proposes to Supergirl, a new era of the Kryptonian legacy. His stomach twisted as he clicked on an article detailing the image, but it wasn't just the words that bothered him. It was the truth everyone had believed. Everyone but her. He hadn't meant to say it. He hadn't meant for her to hear it that way. But the spark in her eyes had ignited something deep within him. Something long buried. And now, he couldn't undo it. Kara had accepted it with the kind of love that felt like the first crack of dawn, innocent and new. A soft knock interrupted his thoughts. Lois Lane entered, her eyes as sharp as ever. She had always known something was off, had always been able to read him when no one else could. Today was no different. "Clark," Lois said, her voice low, almost cautious. "We need to talk." He nodded, unable to meet her gaze. "I know." "Do you?" She crossed the room, her eyes flicking to the screen. "Is this what you wanted?" Her words pierced through him like ice. No, no, it wasn't what he wanted. But it had happened, and now he was trapped in it, tangled in something bigger than the two of them. "I didn't mean to," he said quietly. "I never meant for her to think." "I mean, she didn't think, did she?" Lois sat on the edge of his desk, her expression unreadable. "Clark, what did you think was going to happen? You can't just drop a bomb like that on someone and not expect consequences." He ran a hand through his hair, the weight of it all crushing him. "I never expected her to say yes." Lois' gaze softened, but there was no pity in it, only understanding. "She loves you, Clark. You're her family, her world, and you just gave her everything she ever dreamed of." But that wasn't the whole truth. It couldn't be. He had hurt her, hurt Kara, in ways he couldn't even begin to understand. By not saying what he truly felt, by pretending that the love he thought he'd never find had come in the form of an accident. And now he had to face the fallout. In the silence of his apartment, Clark looked out the window at the city below. Metropolis was calm, its streets lit up with the life that flowed through it every night. The people didn't know. They couldn't. The weight of the world that he carried was something only a few could understand. Then the air shifted. A gust of wind, too familiar to be a coincidence, swept through the open window. And there, standing at the edge of the balcony, was Supergirl. Her eyes met his through the glass, filled with a quiet sadness. She didn't say anything as she stepped inside. Her presence was enough. Every inch of her radiated the pain of a love misunderstood. She wore the same smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I didn't mean to hurt you," Clark said, his voice barely more than a whisper. Kara stepped closer, her eyes steady, unwavering. "You didn't, Clark. But you should have told me, before everything went this far." The distance between them felt miles, even though it was only inches. He could feel the weight of her words, the spaces they had left unsaid. She had accepted him, his words, his silence. She had accepted him in a way only someone who truly loved could. But now she was waiting for him to tell her the truth. And as he opened his mouth to speak, everything inside him quivered. There was no going back. The world was listening. Her heart was listening. "I'm sorry," he said. "I never meant to make you think that this was something it wasn't." For the first time in a long time, he felt truly powerless. And for the first time in his life, he realized the truth. He could save the world, but he couldn't save this. And it was too late to fix what had already broken. The city below was alive, but Metropolis felt distant to Superman as he stood with Kara on the rooftop, their silhouettes framed by the dimming sky. The weight of the world felt heavier tonight. More than ever before, it pressed against his chest, suffocating him with every breath. Kara was silent, her eyes tracing the horizon, the lights of the city flickering like stars she couldn't quite reach. Her fists clenched at her sides, the tension in her body palpable, like a storm waiting to break. The night had fallen, but the battle between them, unspoken, unfinished, was far from over. "You didn't have to say it." Kara finally spoke, her voice soft but sharp. "You could have told me the truth." Clark turned toward her, his heart twisting at the pain in her eyes. "I didn't mean it that way, Kara. It was a mistake. I never intended for it to go this far." "But it did," she said, her voice trembling with something he couldn't quite place. "You said it, and I accepted it. You didn't stop me." He felt his stomach twist. "Because I didn't want to hurt you. I didn't think you'd believe it. I thought it would be just a moment, a feeling, a feeling." Her eyes flashed. "A feeling. Do you think that's what this is?" Kara took a step toward him, and her presence was like a whirlwind. The air between them crackled with unsaid words, with the deep pull of longing and regret. Clark felt it, The attraction between them that had always been there, but had only now revealed itself in full violent force. He had seen her as family, as his closest ally. But somewhere in the quiet moments between battles, he had seen something more, something he didn't know how to name. You think I'm just some passing thought. Kara's voice shook now, but there was fire in her eyes. You think I'd just accept whatever you throw at me, like I'm some kind of backup. No. Clark stepped forward, reaching for her, his hands trembling. Kara, you mean more to me than anything. But this, us, it's not simple. It's never been simple. You know that. She stepped back, shaking her head. Then why did you say it, Clark? Why did you let me think this was real? A silence stretched between them, a chasm that neither could bridge. Clark wanted to speak, to make it right, but the words wouldn't come. How could he explain it? How could he make her see that he had never meant for this to happen? He was a man of actions, of saving worlds, of being the hero. But in this, with her, he felt helpless. We are real, Clark, she said, her voice softer now, but just as full of hurt. But you're not ready to admit it. Not ready to admit that maybe we were meant to be something more. The city's distant hum reached them, the faint sound of sirens wailing. It was the world trying to pull them back into it, into the chaos. But all Clark could hear was the beat of his heart, pounding in his chest, and the painful truth of Kara's words. She turned, her cape fluttering like a dying flame in the wind, and for a moment, Clark thought she might leave. He couldn't blame her if she did. He had given her nothing but confusion, nothing but silence where there should have been honesty. But then she paused. Her shoulders slumped slightly, as if the weight of everything she had carried was too much to bear. We could have been something, she whispered, not turning to face him. You and I. But now, I don't know if I can trust you again. The words cut deeper than any battle he had ever fought. His heart ached, and for the first time, Clark felt the crushing weight of his mistakes. Before he could say anything, Kara was gone, flying into the night, leaving him alone with the wreckage of what could have been. Clark stood there, watching the sky darken, feeling the emptiness of the city echo inside him. The world needed him. The world always needed him. But for the first time, he wondered, who would need him, if not her? The cold light of the moon spilled over the barren surface of the collapsed lunar colony. It was an eerie silence that wrapped itself around Superman like a suffocating blanket, the absence of sound more deafening than any battle cry. He hovered in the stillness, his cape drifting lazily behind him. Below, the shattered ruins of the outpost lay scattered like broken dreams. This was supposed to be their moment of peace, a time to step away from the chaos. But it felt like the calm before the storm. Kara had insisted they come here, far away from the world's expectations and noise, a place where they could breathe, where they could just be. She had suggested it casually, as if she didn't know the weight of what hung between them. Come with me, Clark, she had said earlier, voice steady but tinged with something unreadable. Let's get away, just for tonight. We'll go somewhere the world can't touch us. At first, he'd agreed without hesitation, thinking the distance would give them both the time to think, to heal. But now, as he stood on the moon's surface, the reality of their unspoken words hit him harder than any punch he ever thrown. Kara was already there, standing at the edge of a crater, her arms wrapped tightly around herself. She had shed her cape, the fabric gathering at her feet, and her blue suit seemed to glow under the moonlight. For all her strength, for all her power, she was as fragile as the night sky around them. You know, she began, her voice breaking through the stillness. I thought we were beyond all this, beyond pretending. Clark took a step toward her, his boots making soft sounds on the dust. Kara, I never wanted to hurt you. I'm sorry. I never meant for any of this to happen. She turned to face him, her eyes glistening like stars, yet there was something distant about them now, as though she had already begun to slip away from him. You don't understand, do you? You said it, Clark. And I believed it. I believed you were finally seeing me, not just your cousin, not just the sidekick, but me. The words struck him like a physical blow. He wanted to apologize, to fix everything, but he felt paralyzed. He had pushed her too far, and now the gap between them felt like an insurmountable chasm. I never wanted to make you feel like that, he whispered, stepping closer. But the truth is, I was scared. Scared of what we could be, what it would mean for us, for the world. Kara took a breath, her chest rising and falling sharply. She looked up at him with a mix of pain and disbelief. I don't need you to be scared, Clark. I need you to be honest. I needed you to see me. Her words were like shards of ice, cold and sharp, sinking deep into him. She was right. He had been scared, scared of the love he'd never expected, scared of the responsibility of it. But that fear had made him distant, and now it was too late to undo the damage. Kara, he said, his voice thick with regret. I do see you. I've always seen you. But I never knew how to say it. I didn't know how to tell you that. You're everything to me. There was a long silence. The universe seemed to hold its breath, as though waiting for her response. Kara didn't speak. She didn't move. She simply looked at him, as if waiting for the words to make sense of the mess he had created. Finally, she stepped back, her eyes locking with his one last time. Then why didn't you show me, Clark? Why did you let me believe something that wasn't real? The distance between them stretched further, and for a moment, Clark felt the vast emptiness of space swallow him whole. He had lost her, not because of villains, not because of fate, but because of his own silence. You were always real to me, Kara, he said quietly, his voice barely more than a whisper. But I was too afraid to let it be. Without another word, she turned and began to walk away, her figure vanishing into the shadows. Clark stood there, alone beneath the cold light of the moon, the weight of his mistakes hanging in the air like the silent emptiness around him. He didn't know if he would ever see her again, but he knew one thing for certain. The love he had taken for granted was now slipping through his fingers like stardust, fading into the void. Days passed in silence, the kind of silence that stretched on, so thick and heavy, it threatened to suffocate everything it touched. Clark spent his days as Superman, his eyes scanning the city, saving lives, fighting the impossible. But every moment felt empty. Every victory, hollow. The world had moved on, but his heart was still lost somewhere between the ruins of his own mistakes. Kara hadn't returned to him. Not physically, not emotionally. She was out there somewhere, maybe fighting alone, maybe looking for answers that he couldn't provide. She had gone, but he could still feel her, like a storm lingering in the air. And with each passing day, the ache inside him grew. It was late one evening when the call came. The emergency beacon flashed in the sky above Metropolis, one he couldn't ignore. Another crisis, another chance to make things right, or at least try to. Clark suited up quickly, the familiar weight of the suit pressing against his chest. He launched himself into the night sky, the wind rushing past him, the lights of the city below flickering like stars that hadn't yet learned to fade. But even as the chaos below called for his attention, his mind kept drifting back to her. To Kara. Her absence gnawed at him like a wound that wouldn't heal. The call had come from the outskirts of the city, a massive storm, a swirl of unnatural wind and lightning that was tearing through the streets. The source was an unknown villain, someone cloaked in darkness, manipulating the elements. No one knew who they were or what they wanted. But Clark knew one thing for certain. He had to stop them. As he arrived at the scene, the storm hit him like a wall. Winds howled, the air electric with power. Buildings shook under the fury of the storm, windows shattering in 1,000 directions. Superman dove straight into the heart of the chaos, his fists punching through the air, trying to steady the violent winds. He saw the shadow in the midst of it all, a figure standing tall, arms outstretched, as if feeding off the storm itself. And then he saw her. Kara. She stood at the center, her eyes glowing with an intensity he had never seen before. She was calm, calm in the eye of the storm. But there was a coldness in her gaze, a detachment that sent a chill down his spine. She wasn't here to fight the storm. She was part of it. Kara. Clark shouted, his voice barely audible over the roar of the wind. He pushed forward, his heart racing. What are you doing? Her head turned slowly, her expression unreadable. There was no sign of the warmth, the light he had once seen in her eyes. Instead, there was a quiet fury, a determination that wasn't born of love, but of something darker. I'm doing what I should have done a long time ago, she said, her voice calm and even. I'm letting go. Clark's chest tightened. Kara. No, you don't have to do this. This isn't you. You're better than this. She laughed softly, but there was no joy in it. Am I? Because it feels like everything I've ever done has been for others. I've always been the sidekick, the backup. But I'm tired of that, Clark. I'm tired of living in your shadow. The storm raged around them, as if reflecting the battle inside her. Superman could feel it, the darkness creeping in, threatening to consume her. He reached out, his hands trembling as he tried to close the distance between them. Kara, please. His voice broke through the storm, desperate now. This isn't the way. Whatever I've done, I never meant to push you away. I never wanted you to feel less than anyone, least of all me. She met his gaze, her expression unreadable. For a moment, he saw a flicker of the Kara he knew, the girl who had stood beside him through every battle, every loss. But it was fleeting. It was fading fast. I'm not the same person anymore, Clark, she said, her voice barely a whisper. And I'm not sure I ever want to be again. And with that, she lifted her hands, the storm intensifying in response. The world around them cracked and shattered. And Clark knew that this was the moment he'd feared. She was slipping away. The world would break, but more than that, they would break. Superman could save anyone. He could save everything. But he couldn't save her. Not like this. The storm howled louder, its fury matching the chaos within Clark's heart. He could feel the winds tearing at his body, trying to push him back, but he didn't care. The city was crumbling around him, the streets splitting open, buildings crumbling under the force of the storm. But none of it mattered. Not anymore. Kara had crossed a line that went beyond their battle for justice. She had stepped into a world of darkness, a place where even his strength couldn't reach her. She wasn't just fighting a villain. She was fighting herself, and he was powerless to stop it. He closed the distance between them, his heart pounding in his chest, not from the storm, but from the fear that was tightening its grip on him. The fear of losing her, of watching her become something he couldn't recognize. Kara, he said, his voice hoarse, strained, as he reached for her. Please, you don't have to do this. Her eyes flickered, but there was no warmth in them. Only the cold fire of determination that burned in her gaze. It's too late, Clark. I've already made my choice. The wind whipped around them, as if the earth itself was trying to separate them, pushing him away from her. But Clark refused to let it. He reached out again, his hand trembling as he caught her wrist. She didn't pull away, but the look in her eyes was like a distant storm he couldn't tame. You don't have to carry this alone, Kara, he said, his voice breaking. We've always done this together. I know you. You're not this person. She shook her head, a bitter laugh escaping her lips. You don't get it, do you? You've always been the hero, the one everyone looks up to. And I've been the sidekick, the sister. But I'm tired of it, Clark. I'm tired of standing in your shadow, waiting for my turn to matter. Her words stung, cutting deeper than any physical wound ever could. He had never seen her like this. He had never seen this much pain, this much anger in her. It was as if she had been holding it all inside, letting it fester until it finally exploded. I never wanted you to feel like that, Clark whispered, his voice full of regret. You matter to me, Kara. You've always mattered." She stepped back, pulling her wrist from his grip, but her eyes stayed locked on his. "Then why did you let me believe that us, could be anything more than a mistake?" Clark opened his mouth to speak, but the words felt stuck, caught in his throat like debris in a storm. There was nothing he could say that would fix this, nothing that could heal the wound he had inflicted upon her. All he could do was stand there, helpless, watching her slip further away. The wind intensified, howling like a beast in agony, and Clark knew they didn't have much time. The city was already in ruins. People were fleeing. The damage was growing. He couldn't save the world if he couldn't save her first. But how could he save her when she had already decided she didn't need saving? "I don't want to be your hero anymore," Kara said, her voice low and steady. "I want to be my own person." And with that, the storm shifted. Kara lifted her hands, and the winds suddenly changed course, swirling violently as though answering her command. It was no longer a fight. It was a declaration. The power that had always been within her was no longer a gift to be shared. It was hers, all hers. Clark's heart ached, watching the woman he had once seen as his equal, his partner, become a force of nature. The balance between them had shattered, and now she was becoming something else, something he couldn't fight, something he couldn't understand. He flew back a few feet, struggling to keep his footing in the swirling chaos around them. His eyes locked on hers one last time. There was no turning back. She had chosen her path, and in choosing it, she had closed the door between them forever. "Kara," Clark whispered, his voice barely audible over the storm. "Please, don't leave me." But she didn't respond. She didn't need to. The storm that raged around them spoke louder than any words ever could. It was her declaration, her independence. And as the winds began to die down, Clark realized the truth. This battle wasn't for the world. It was for them, and he had already lost. The storm had passed, but the silence was even more deafening. Superman floated above the ruins of Metropolis, his cape fluttering weakly in the gentle breeze. Below, the city was a wreckage of broken glass and twisted metal, a reflection of everything he had failed to protect. The people were gone, safe, but the chaos lingered in the air like a shadow that wouldn't fade. He had lost her. Clark hovered for a moment, torn between the world he was sworn to protect and the woman he had loved, the woman he had lost. There was no comforting her now. No way to rewind time and take back the words he had spoken. The silence he had allowed to fester between them. She had made her choice, and he had made his mistakes. But even knowing this, the ache inside him would not subside. He wanted to fly to her, to pull her from the edge, but something told him it was too late. The path they had walked together had ended, and now he was alone. Alone, just like he had always feared. Kara was gone. But in the depths of his pain, a part of him refused to accept it. What if there was still hope? What if they could still fix it? He wasn't a man who gave up easily, and the idea of losing her forever made his chest tighten. He could see her now, her image flashing through his mind like a distant star, her strength, her fire, her unwavering determination. She had always been there, a constant in his life. And yet, here they were, on opposite sides of an invisible divide. As if sensing his struggle, his mind shifted back to the moment they had shared on the moon. The words they had exchanged were still raw, still ringing in his ears. "I'm not the same person anymore," Kara had said. "I'm not sure I ever want to be again." And yet here he was, still clinging to the idea of who she had been, who they had been. Clark turned his gaze downward, toward the distant horizon. The sun was beginning to rise, casting a soft golden light over the shattered remains of the city. It was a new day. A day that carried with it the weight of their broken relationship. But in the breaking, there was always the possibility of rebuilding. He had to believe that. He descended to the ground, his boots touching the cracked earth gently. The air was still heavy with the aftermath of the storm, but there was a new calm in the air now. a calm that seemed to pulse with the weight of decisions yet to be made. His eyes scanned the horizon, seeking her, hoping for some sign that she had not completely vanished into the darkness. And then, in the distance, he saw it, a figure silhouetted against the rising sun. The unmistakable shape of Kara. She stood alone on a rooftop, her back to him, her posture rigid. He could feel the distance between them, but there was something else there, too, a flicker of something he hadn't seen in her before. Vulnerability. Pain. Clark took a step forward, then another. The air around him crackled with energy, the same energy that always surrounded them when they fought side by side. But this wasn't a fight. This was a moment of reckoning, a moment where everything had to be said. His voice broke the silence. Kara. She didn't turn, but her shoulders stiffened. She knew he was there. I don't know how to fix this, Clark continued, his voice low but steady. I can't change what's been done, but I'm not ready to give up. Not on you. Not on us. A long pause followed, and for a moment, he wondered if she would respond, if she would turn to him, or simply walk away. But the silence stretched, and his heart beat harder, louder, in his chest. Finally, Kara spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. I don't know if I can trust you again, Clark. I don't know if I can go back. Her words stung, but Clark stood firm. He had known this would be hard. He had known it would take everything he had. I don't expect you to, he said quietly, but I'm not going to stop fighting for you. For us. I just need you to know that. Kara didn't respond immediately, but the weight of her words hung in the air. And in that silence, there was something there, something that might have been the beginning of a bridge between them. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but someday they would find their way back. He had to believe it. As the sun rose higher, casting a warm light over the broken city, Clark took a deep breath, ready for whatever came next. No matter how far apart they were, he would always be there. The city lay in the quiet aftermath of the storm, a place of both destruction and hope. Superman stood in the shadow of the broken skyline, watching as the sun bathed the ruins in a soft golden light. His heart was heavy, but there was something else now, something stirring deep within him, a sense of resolve, of certainty. The battle for their love had not yet been won, but the war was far from over. He turned his gaze back to the rooftop, where Kara still stood, her back to him. The distance between them had shrunk, but it was still there, an invisible chasm that stretched wide, pulling at them both. He didn't know if the words he had spoken had reached her, or if the pain of the past had made it impossible to bridge the gap. But he wasn't leaving without trying. For the first time, Clark didn't try to fly. He didn't need to. He walked toward her, his boots making the softest sound against the cracked pavement. The air around him was still charged, but it wasn't with the chaos of the storm anymore. It was something more delicate, like a promise, fragile but powerful. When he reached her, he stopped, a few feet away. He didn't reach for her. He didn't try to touch her. He simply stood there, waiting for her to turn. And then she did. Her eyes met his, and for a moment, everything else faded. The world around them, the crumbled city, the broken buildings, the wreckage of their past, seemed to dissolve, leaving only the two of them. Kara's face was weary, her expression guarded. But there was something else there now, something softer, a vulnerability she had never shown him before. I don't know if I can believe you, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I don't know if I can trust you again. The words hit him like a punch to the gut, but he didn't flinch. He couldn't. Not now. Not after everything. I don't expect you to, Clark said quietly, his voice steady. But I'm not asking you to forget what's happened. I'm asking you to believe in what could be, in what we can rebuild together. Her eyes softened just a fraction, and that small change was enough to make his heart leap. She was listening. She was still there. You can't undo what you've done, she continued, her voice tinged with pain. You can't undo the years of silence, of distance, You can't erase the hurt. I know, he said, stepping a little closer. I've made mistakes. I've been scared. But I've never stopped loving you, Kara. Never stopped needing you. And I don't know if I can fix all of it, but I'll try. Every day I'll try. Kara took a breath, her eyes searching his, as though looking for something she wasn't sure she'd find. For a moment, the world held its breath. They stood on the edge of something, a precipice that could either tear them apart or pull them together. Clark's heart pounded in his chest, his every instinct telling him to reach out, to pull her close. But he knew that now, more than ever, it had to be her choice. I don't want to be alone anymore, she said, her voice trembling slightly. But I don't know if I can let myself need you again. The weight of her words hit him hard, but he didn't hesitate. He closed the distance between them slowly, deliberately, his eyes never leaving hers. I've never stopped needing you, he whispered, his voice full of raw emotion. And I'll be here, no matter what. Kara's breath caught, and for the first time in what felt like an eternity, she took a step toward him. It was small, tentative, but it was enough. You always say that, she said softly. But it's time for me to say it too. And then, with a quiet breath, she reached out, her hand trembling ever so slightly as it touched his arm. The contact was small, but it felt like everything. It was a beginning. They didn't need to speak anymore. Words had failed them before. Now there was only the shared silence, the space between them filling with something deeper, something that wasn't about promises or apologies. It was about choosing to move forward together. And in that moment, beneath the rising sun, with the city still breathing around them, they both knew that love, in all its brokenness, could still be reborn from the ashes.